This is Nintendo DS.
When it comes to consoles, Nintendo has always had these weird outliers with gimmicks, like the Virtual Boy or the Wii's now legendary Waggle Tech. Personally, my favorite of the bunch has always been the DS. The idea of two simultaneous screens has always had so much potential in my eyes. Though most games utilizing both screens only ever seem to care about the touch capabilities. Even something as simple as flipping it on its side and holding it like a book has so much you could experiment with. It was really perfect for something like a visual novel, which are really mostly glorified books anyway. Yet none of them used it. Out of all the games that didn't make you turn around the DS, only really Dr. Kawashima's Brain Training had it as its main mechanic, where it really wasn't all that integral to making the game work either. Enter Cing's 2007 gem Hotel Dusk and its sequel Last Window. Visual novel point-and-click adventure games that want to be treated like a book. These are some of the most relaxing and chill experiences you can find in the medium, and because of this, I decided to bring on a friend for this video. Tell us something about yourself, Tony.
Hey everyone, I'm Tony, or Tony4You on YouTube. SMT and Persona content creator mostly, but also a certified visual novel enjoyer. I recently had the opportunity to play through both of the Kyle Hyde games and was invited on here to give my 2 cents on them.
Hey man, thanks for joining me here. Tell me, is there anything you'd like to preemptively say before we start properly?
No problem, man. Feels good to be on another channel. I'm a sucker for good narrative and characters, and damn do these games have it. I'm ready and excited to start this video up. No more stalling, let's get into the nitty gritty.
Hotel Dusk, Room 215, plays in 1979 and follows the tale of Kyle Hyde, an ex-detective who now works as a door-to-door salesman. Kyle's backstory, his reason for quitting the force, and his current goals are gradually told to the player throughout the game and set up with this short but effective introductory cutscene, perfectly setting up the many mysteries you are about to uncover.
This is one of my favorite starts of any visual novel, poignant and with its fair share of mystery.
As you've surely noticed by now, the game uses a gorgeous hand-drawn rotoscoping art style that allows the characters to move in realistic and incredibly smooth ways. Something that would only be refined in Last Window.
The expressiveness on the characters is spot on. I find myself mimicking the little mannerisms of each of them as I was playing on more than one occasion. Every character has a wholly unique suite of animations that purely through art direction gives you a better insight into their character. Also, because of this game's art direction, it still looks great upscaled to a higher resolution too.
Much like any visual novel, the core gameplay largely consists of walking around, talking to people, and solving the occasional puzzle here and there. While the puzzles are fun and interesting, it's really the downtime between and during character interactions that make this game go from great to excellent. One of the first things you will be immediately able to tell is what kind of person Kyle is. The way he behaves and converses with others truly shows the exaggerated swagger of an ex-cop in the 60s.
Kyle Hyde has a way with words not many people have. His ability to speak frankly and honestly is magnetic. People come to him before anyone else to hear his opinion and get his help, sometimes much to his dismay. Characters like Louis Denono and Tony Wolf say it outright, that Kyle is the kind of guy you need at least one of in your life. The way he expresses his opinion through no filter often catches people off guard, and at first may seem heartless, but the results don't lie. If you choose your responses wisely, Kyle genuinely helps people, not only through advice, but listening and letting them come to conclusions on their own. Many people think the best way to help people is to let them help themselves.
It's a very refreshing approach to mystery stories by virtue of not being able to help anyone really. The events have already transpired and all you can do is listen to their stories, that eventually come together to reveal a much grander picture. All of this is presented with the fantastic music of Satoshi Okubo, who is nowadays relegated to composing for the ND Cube Mario parties. His jazzy tunes help convey the coziness of the hotel alongside displaying every character's distinct personality and just being all around incredibly chill.
The music sets the tone perfectly, and the sonic range is impressive. Who knew the DS sound chip could sound this good? All the songs become directly tied to the characters they're played alongside, and maybe even Kyle Hyde's reaction to seeing them. Even the lack of music seems to be a stylistic choice used to convey the tone of specific scenes. The songs evoke the time period of the game and a stoic ex-cop mystery solver vibe very well. This game really makes you feel like Kyle Hyde.
Every character in this game is fantastic, with a great backstory, personality, and stellar writing. My favorite one ended up being Louis, who starts out as a goofy moron whom Kyle had to arrest at more than one occasion in the past, but he ends up growing as a person and seeing the story through to the end. This is sadly also where one of my main issues with the game lies. Every character is, in some way, directly related to the same organization that Kyle's partner and main motivator for this game, Brian Bradley, was investigating before his disappearance: Niall. While it seems like something really annoying, it's thankfully not too hard to suspend your disbelief for a little. I also like how an often recurring motif is the matter of the titular Room 215, the room in which Kyle stays for the night, said to grant the wishes of any that spend the night in it. Obviously that's all bogus as magic isn't real and whatnot, but in a metaphorical sense it does end up helping Kyle, as it is by staying in that room that he manages to finally get over a lot of things that have been plaguing him ever since quitting the force.
This game does a great job of making every single character interaction valuable. Not a single sentence is wasted, and you can believe everything, even seemingly innocuous points in the story, will be relevant later on. One character especially that is important to the story is Milla. The mute young woman is obviously important to the story, but you only get to interact with her sparingly. When you do, however, the puzzle pieces start fitting together and all the time you spent gathering information pays off. Moments like these are what makes the mystery genre amazing, and this game is top-notch in the field.
Despite being a visual novel, the gameplay is surprisingly interesting. Every chapter is separated into a different time frame. In this time, a character will usually tell you to do something or meet them at a certain time, and you're free to explore the hotel, investigate the other people in it, and talk to everyone. You have a handy notebook in which you can note down everything you like, such as vital information for conversations, solutions and notes for puzzles, or the time you're supposed to be doing something, like having a drink at the bar or going to eat some dinner. Every chapter ends by confronting someone about their intentions, reasoning for coming to Hotel Dusk, and their potential connection to Niall. You see, during conversations with characters you'll often automatically note down 3 types of questions Kyle has for the person he's talking to. White questions are optional and give more insight into the person or the story that isn't necessarily relevant to what's currently going on. Yellow questions are important to Kyle and primarily advance the story. And lastly, there are the red questions, which only appear when Kyle is directly confronting someone and are the most important ones to uncovering the mystery of Hotel Dusk. Obviously, this alone isn't really enough to make paying attention engaging, so there are 2 more things to add to this. Firstly, you will often be prompted to make decisions. Choosing the wrong one will have the other characters become suspicious of Kyle, and he'll promptly be thrown out of the hotel, for a large variety of often comedic reasons. But then there's also the recapitulations at the end of every chapter. Kyle will go through all the facts he's acquired throughout it, and you have to tie together all of the findings you've made along the way, set to the backdrop of a thumping and energetic beat. These aren't especially difficult, nor is it possible to fail them, but it's always nice to be rewarded for paying attention to every little thing with these small but effective aha moments.
I was excited to ask every question available in this game, as like I said before, every word is important for the story. The end of chapter confrontations are always something to look forward to. It isn't always a hostile confrontation, but when that music kicks in and you know you're going to get some answers, there really isn't anything else like it. The ability to flex your intelligence gathering and memory skills in a showdown of wits is so rewarding.
Hotel Dusk is a special little game where all the pieces fall in place to create a truly unique experience with an insane amount of replay value that can even be beaten in a single sitting.
Yeah, to me this game was one of a kind, and was an experience I could recommend to anyone who likes a good story. Or it would be one of a kind if there wasn't another one.
Now, I want you to take every single compliment we've given to Hotel Dusk and ask yourself the question, where do you possibly go from here? How can you possibly improve a game like this? I'll tell you how. The answer is Last Window, the secret of Cape West. Being an indirect continuation of 2 Hotel Dusk, this game focuses on something a lot more personal to Kyle. The game plays in December of 1980, and much like the first game opens up with a gorgeous introduction in 2 parts. The first being set in the past, setting up the mystery of a man trying to steal some sort of gemstone before being shot and having a look through his last window. And the second, showing that Kyle has officially broken the camel's back. So being the poor, lazy, and newly unemployed schmuck he is, he goes back to Cape West Apartments, his home, where he is greeted by Tony Wolf and is informed that he needs to pack his things because by the end of the month the building is going to be no more. This creates an incredibly interesting dynamic for the story, where Kyle has to simultaneously struggle with getting his things in the present sorted out, as well as uncovering the past of the apartments. The secret of Cape West, if you will!
While the story is a direct continuation chronologically from Hotel Dusk, the narrative of this game is completely different. Kyle's skill set remains the same, but his connections to the mystery in some ways is much deeper in this game. While in Hotel Dusk, the story was mainly indirectly tied to Kyle through Bradley, Last Window starts immediately by giving Kyle the opportunity to uncover a truth about his own family. That being the death of his father 25 years ago, his stomping grounds now being the place he called home for so many years when he came to California. If you thought Kyle was a bit detached from the plot and characters in the first game, he becomes much more involved throughout Last Window, as the mystery is so personal to his life, not just his previous job. I found myself not being able to put this one down once I picked up Steam, which granted took a while. Once the clues start building though, the investigating and intelligence gathering will make you wonder where all that time went.
By now you've probably realized that graphically, the game has seen a major upgrade. Everything looks and moves a lot cleaner and more realistically, and the sheer and utter dedication the team went to make everything look this great is jaw-dropping. There's this really cool behind the scenes video on its animation detailing the absolutely humongous task of bringing these characters to life. And the director himself even went as far as to touch up every single outsourced frame by himself. The end results really speak for themselves here, and it's a truly unique art style that I simply cannot get enough of.
Pretty much everything we said about Hotel Dusk applies to this game, but better. There are much more fluid animations and unique touches for the characters to give them more life. Some of my favorite designs being Tony, Margaret, and Sydney. Also, the problem I had of copying the characters' little movements only got worse. Avoid playing this game in public, okay?
Aside from all this, the core gameplay has remained mostly the same, with some minor improvements here and there. There's so much optional side content too, like being able to win a handheld minigame, or a crucial story moment in which you get to help out one of 3 different people. By far a highlight, however, are the characters. Everything is organically interwoven in a way that makes sense, with several of the characters having no correlation to the greater plot, simply happening to live in the same building. They somehow managed to take everything that worked in the original and expanded upon it greatly. But most of all, the characters. My favorites easily ended up being Rex Foster and Tony Wolf. The former in particular acting as a sort of anti-Kyle, always being one step ahead of you, inquiring into your past and basically making his presence known all the time.
The development they go through is astounding. Never has such an arc been given to a character which, realistically, doesn't do that much for the story than Tony Wolf. Some of my favorite written characters are Tony for sure, with his ability to bring levity to any mood and be surprisingly thoughtful in some situations, and the sub-story with Sydney and Claire. Those quiet times at the Lucky Cafe listening to Sydney and Kyle banter back and forth lets you see into the way Kyle treats people he actually enjoys the company of, which is not many people. Every character gets a unique layered personality, and the writing is razor sharp as always. Everyone has their secrets and interests. Get used to using that notebook.
One last thing I've been holding off on mentioning until now is probably one of my favorite things about any game, really, because of how creative it is. Inside the game is a novel. The absolute mad lads over at Cing rewrote the entire story into the form of an actual novel, adding new minor details here and there that is in-universe written by Morton Summer, a character from the first game whom Kyle's not too fond of. This is yet another minor callback to a throwaway line in the first game, in which Summer proclaimed the next novel's protagonist would be based on Kyle. After every chapter of the game, a new chapter in the novel is unlocked, and at the end of these is a secret file, containing additional backstory for Kyle, his co-workers, and his time at the Force. These are also clever hints to puzzles in the following chapter. It's just too bad that you won't be ever able to use them as such, due to the fact that opening Even one of them, before beating the game, locks you out of getting the final secret file, which contains the game's extended epilogue that tells you what happened to everyone after the apartments were torn down.
If reading the visual novel wasn't enough for you, here's an actual book. Useful for those who want to revisit the story but maybe not play through the whole game again. The epilogues are really what you want to see, and they wrap a nice bow on the stories of each character.
It's a damn shame that this was Cing's final game, as shortly after its release, 2010, the company went defunct, and the rights to the series remained at Nintendo, where it will be forever rotting away, never seeing a re-release of any kind. Hyde's last appearance was in the form of a spirit in Smash Bros. Ultimate, and as much as it pains me to say that may very well be the last place we will ever see him. Now I know that the game did end up getting a spiritual successor in the form of 2016's Chase Cold Case Investigations Distant Memories, which is a hell of a mouthful to say. However, the story for that game was left an unfinished mess, and the project in general feels like one as well. The animation is stiff and the characters bland. The story of Cing is one of many stories and ideas, ambition and creativity. And I believe there is something to be found here that we can all learn from.
The tale of Cing's closure isn't an uncommon one, unfortunately, and the decision to create works so unique and unorthodox was maybe a little bit too brave. Their games will be remembered as mastercrafts in the visual novel and mystery game genre, but only posthumously. A damn shame. Nintendo is too busy making sure you can't get ROMs of this game than actually building upon the series. It's okay, Cing. You were too good for this world.
And with that said, I thank you very much for coming on here, man. I really couldn't have done it without you.
Anytime, brother. And thanks for this recommendation. I didn't think much of it when you first brought it up to me. Then, they became two of my favorite games on the DS. Hey, subscribe to this guy, will you, viewer? Oh, and me too while you're at it. Take it easy, everyone.
Tony's channel will be linked in the description, as well as a video on his channel in which I made a special guest appearance. With that, I thank you so much for watching the video. If you liked it, feel free to like and subscribe, maybe even leave a comment to please the algorithm demons. Oh, and do me a favor here. Have a fantastic day. Cheers.